We start this month with a huge Cyber Monday, and we're also celebrating the launch of brand new programs over at Synchronicity University, which includes legendary astrologers like Maurice Fernandez and legends in the making like Key Taylor and Sabrina Monarch, and so much more. All those links are below. It'll be a great month. Enjoy. Hello, fabulous superstar Aries. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of December 2024. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological month, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. Boys, it's a very special time. And it truly is so special now. This month, the last month of 2024, is special. There is so much going on and powerful energies at play that do suggest seeing clearly, even when it's hard, but also getting more honest, especially for you. But I think the energy that is going to end up playing perhaps a very significant part for a lot of us out there is the fact that in this rare astrological month, we are going to start the month on a new moon, but also end the month on a new moon as well. And to me, this suggests the perfect setup for a brand new year that is coming up next month, right around the corner. So let's go through these big astrological events one at a time for you. It is going to be on the first of the month that we will have a new moon. This new moon takes place in a part of the sky for you that has to do with adventure and meeting more of the world, figuratively or literally as well. I want you to consider that it is under the light of this new moon that we are entering this month with Mercury retrograde in this same part of the sky. And so, as much as this part of the sky has to do with the new, the next, what might find us if we're open to it, because Mercury is retrograde here, any journey, figurative or literal, may not necessarily be what you expect it to be. And this can be one of those moments that, on the one hand, holds the promise of adventure, but at the same time, the adventure is in returning to adventures of the past, those familiar to you in some way. But I think one of the main ways that a lot of Aries may end up feeling this energy is through awareness around what you believe. Now, that could be political, philosophical, or religious. Private moments where you feel very caught up in perhaps world events or caught up in what you believe, and you feel like, oh, I got that right thing to say, and I could say it to the right person, and it would make all the difference. And oh, I really want to let that person know how I'm thinking. There's that. Then there's another thing that has to do with sharing what it is that you are thinking, that you are feeling. And you might feel inspired to do that as well. But just remember, with Mercury retrograde here, it might be the case that what you think is so clear actually is more nuanced than you realize. And you're not going to realize that until we get until the middle of the month. I'll talk about that in just a moment. This part of the sky, in a more practical way, has to do with things like long distance travel, immigration, citizenship, higher learning, and legal matters. So, new pathways related to these might show up for you now. This new moon is speaking in a conversation of tension with Saturn, and that is about restriction and limitation, but it's also about having to deal with things practically and having to be honest with yourself as well. But it's trying your ruling planet Mars. At the time of this first new moon, it is your ruling planet that appears to be pretty much standing still in the sky and will, 6 days into the month, officially go retrograde, beginning one of its rare retrograde seasons. And so, regardless of what it is that feels less than ideal to you, and I'm so sorry to say, but I do think that there may be some factor there that does feel that way. That's part of this new moon. What we also have is empowerment. We have being energized. We have real reasons and motivations to take action and to feel like things can get better, and they absolutely can. There's a larger sense of consequence here and an exploration of fairness. And for you, that is playing out in these institutions I just mentioned, but also in terms of your understanding of what you believe about the world. How fair is it really? What are the limits of your power? My mom, she likes to say to me sometimes, you can't save the world. You can't save the world. And it's hard for sensitive souls to really accept that. But for all that, that doesn't mean there's not a whole lot you can do. And one of them is to align your energies where it is that you desire the collective to go. That just might be one of the most empowered things you do under the light of this first new moon. As I mentioned, we are going to have Mars, your ruling planet, officially going retrograde in a heart-oriented part of the sky. This has to do with what you want in your heart of hearts in every area of life. And it's about what it is that's going to make you happy. What is it that's going to light up your heart? And how can you take what you're passionate about and turn it into something that feels like perhaps an entrepreneurial endeavor or something that you get to experience that much more? Now, Mars retrograde season is something that I've been speaking about and have short horoscopes up about here on my YouTube channel. And extended horoscopes as well are up on my website for download, nadiyashah.com. But having said that, this is big deal for you, okay? This is you having an awareness of self. And when a planet goes retrograde, not only do its energies turn inward, but its energies turn more karmic as well, meaning that we tend to attract experiences that feel that much more faded. And ultimately, what is part of this larger journey is becoming aware of what you really want and where perhaps you haven't been honest with yourself about that. Because if you were, perhaps it would be a game changer, so much so that you don't know what that might look like for you. And that can be scary. And so, these moments where your heart starts speaking that much more clearly to you about what it wants, make sure you plan to take some steps to listen in. It is the following day that Neptune is going to change directions, going direct in the sign just before yours. Now, whenever it is that Neptune goes direct, it is a rude awakening. In one form or another, we are feeling it. And this is an incredibly important energy here. It is a wake-up call, yes, but it's also needing to accept the truth of a situation, even if you wish it was different. It's almost like it doesn't matter how it is that you are hoping for things to be. There is also an objective reality that needs to be acknowledged, and that can feel uncomfortable. There can sometimes be feelings of loss where it comes to Neptune, and especially Neptune going forward. It's about moving forward despite or instead of taking those losses. Now, for all that, it is Neptune going forward in the sign just before yours. This is about accepting some ending for you. Now, that could play out in just about any area of life. It may not relate to a current situation, but it is about you finally accepting or being honest with yourself about your own energy around a given matter and where it is now that you are ready to move forward. It's about understanding what meaningful faith is for you and plugging into source. It's about knowing and feeling on a spiritual, vibrational level that you have so much more yet to do in this lifetime. You can have faith in yourself and faith in the future as well, even if it isn't clear what it is that you are to do next. You just know that something within you is now saying, you've had your moments. You've had a need to accept your disappointments. And now, finally, you're ready to integrate those experiences so that they are not as dominant in your life as perhaps they have been. All of that is happening in just the first week of this month. The 15th of the month is huge. We have Mercury going direct on the same day that we have a full moon. And this full moon is taking place in a communicative part of your sky. Now, here's the thing. This full moon is not far away from Jupiter, so it's close enough to be considered a conjunction, a meeting, if you will, but it's not so close as to be as potent, but nevertheless significant. The more strong conversation playing out here is the fact that the full moon is going to square Neptune. And that square is an energy of confusion. It's an energy of tension. Neptune having to do with what the ideal is for you. as opposed to what the reality is for you, well, that might be part of what feels uncertain now. Full moons help us to accept some truth, very often an emotional truth, even if it's hard. It brings moments of culmination and fruition. And for you, that fruition very well is going to be rooted in finally getting the message, wishing the message was different, but knowing that this is the message that really is for the best. That's the Jupiter kicking in. You know that this is actually really good. Maybe having a difficult conversation, or in other ways, yeah, getting the hint, finally accepting certain realities that are there, no matter how disappointing they might feel. But you know on some level that this is where your healing is, but also this is what's going to allow even greater things to find you, and they certainly can. Now, this part of the sky, in addition to the messages you're receiving, communication, conversations, synchronistic moments, and particularly in those synchronistic moments, being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right person, it can make all the difference. And part of that difference is, yeah, hearing some news that maybe you wish was different, and yet, again, ends up being meaningful and healing for you in some way. This also has to do with siblings, cousins, and neighbors, this part of the sky. And what takes place now may not have to do with what's happening in your life, but more specifically about what it is that's happening in their lives at this time. And so it might be one of these people who is experiencing this disappointing turn of events, but then you get to be there with your hope and your affirmation. It might be that one of these people does something that does feel disappointing to you in some way, but again, there's this awareness, this feeling. The message is coming through very clearly that whatever it is that's transpiring really is for the highest good of all concerned. On the same day, the fact that Mercury goes direct, I mean, if ever there was a moment of clarity, Mercury direct will do it. That day that Mercury turns and the days surrounding it, well, in some way they tend to awaken some understanding within the self. Some clarity finally hits. And for you, it might be a sense of what's really going on in a matter having to do with what we spoke about earlier: long distance travel, immigration, citizenship, higher learning, and legal matters. Whether it is legal agreements, whether it is a matter having to do with perhaps you're a student, there's been a little back and forth there that you've had to sort out. It might be a desire to travel, but again, this energy could be more personal, related to something that you believe about the world that might even have you riled up. And then in an instant, you see it differently. You see it from a different perspective. And that helps you to feel that much more clear about what beliefs are going to serve your pathway forward. With this Mercury retrograde, I want you to consider as well November 7th. It is going to be Mercury returning to where Mercury was around a week into the month of November. And so it becomes that much more imperative to review your notes, right? Your journal, or however it is that you document, because in some way what's happening in the middle of this month under the light of that full moon might have you seeing events in these worldly matters we've been talking about. You might be seeing them differently in some way, more clearly. That helps you to make a more conscious choice moving forward from here. On the 30th of the month, we have the second new moon this month set to take place at the top of your sky. This new moon is speaking in harmony with Saturn. It is speaking in tension with the nodes of the moon. And the nodes of the moon, as I spoke of in one of my books called The Universe is Wise and Loving, it has to do with the promises you make to yourself before you incarnate. And it has to do with an awareness around what it is that the soul desires to do, which isn't always in congruency with what you consciously are feeling motivated to do. And where there's some disconnect, or where there's some feeling that there's more you've got to get done, especially where it comes to your understanding of a higher, more loving vision for your life, you might feel that inner stir taking place. That connection with Saturn, though, I'm really encouraged by because it brings with it stability. It says take some action, whatever it is, and you feel that things start moving in a positive direction. Now, the part of the sky that this new moon is in has to do with career, social standing, life purpose, new opportunities, interviews, and audition situations. And there is likely to be some new opportunity that presents itself or some new insight, some new idea that helps you to feel like you are moving into alignment with that higher, more loving vision for your life. Now, it could be that it comes with an increase of responsibility. That's part of what Saturn can bring. And it's going to be up to you to decide whether or not it's worth taking up the opportunity as you weigh your options at this time. Because as much as it might feel good to have some kind of advancement, there's also a need to recognize that there is going to be some effort, some cost, some increase of responsibility, and you get to measure how much worth it is going to be for you at that time. Where it comes to matters of love, I'm going right back to Mars going retro. Part of this Mars retrograde season is set to take place in that heart-oriented part of the sky, which, in addition to what I mentioned, has to do with romance, flirtation, and what the heart truly wants. And you are one of the signs that needs to be mindful that breakups that happen with Mars retrograde season in this part of the sky tends to not stay broken up. So there are certain love houses, right? If you are a student of astrology, the 5th, the 7th, and the 8th. And it is going to be this Mars retrograde season that's spending part of the time for you in the 5th, but then part of the time in a different part of your sky. And so events around what's happening in love can feel like an awakening of sorts. Again, this idea of karma is there. This idea of perhaps reconnections, especially in the majority of the month, especially once we move towards the 6th and forward in this month. Reconnections with people that maybe you were connected with before. This isn't relationship energy, right? Not necessarily people you were partnered with before, but more like people that you might have dated, you might have enjoyed, you might have felt love or experienced that romance and flirtatious energy with. Those are the types of people that are most likely to pop up in some way now and into your awareness. Outside of that, though, this energy does invite you to go deeper and find a new understanding of what love is for you going forward from here. So for those of you open to meeting someone new, the likelihood of an awakening of heart. Now, whether that is people who are so much like people you used to date, or whether that is someone that you used to date or, you considered a fling of some sort, it's these types of people that become that much more likely to re-enter your life at this time. But for all that, it's also a time of helping you to understand the voice of the heart, the will of the heart, and what it is that the heart is really needing in the context of love, and whether or not you really feel that that has been there for you in the context of your past situations. Well, it might just be those that are being invited to heal so that you can love that much more fully going forward from here. For those of you just starting to date someone, well, the most likely scenario is things get a lot more passionate, things get a lot more intense. Now, during a retrograde, the way things look and the way that they actually are might end up being very different. But for all that, we do have powerful energies here that say what your heart is wanting. It feels so much on the surface. And whether or not this is the person to direct the energy to, you are feeling like you want to bring it forward. And if that's the case, enjoy yourself without any expectation. That really is key, especially with an important retrograde like this. But for all that, if it feels like this is not someone to navigate forward with, you of course want to trust that in light of your unique circumstances, knowing that on the other side of this retrograde season, you might get another look. You might change your mind, and that's okay as well. And for those of you in an established bond, well, the overwhelming majority are going to find this a time of heart awakening. Maybe you're feeling more frisky with your partner. You're wanting to connect more on that more frisky level. But outside of that, yeah, prioritizing joy, wanting to do fun things together. A very small percent out there. If you felt for a while that you might not be with the right person for you, it's almost like this discontent in the heart stirs. But I think the more likely scenario is a sincere desire to be understood and to understand, especially on a heart level, might motivate you to take efforts so that the two of you can see if there is a pathway forward. What I love about this month for you, there's so much here. It is a remarkable and meaningful astrological moment. It is jam-packed, is it not? There is so much going on now. And if I had to pick one thing, I'm going to actually say Mars retrograde, even though you wouldn't think a retrograde would be it, but when a planet goes retrograde, it's closer to the Earth than it might otherwise be. And that means that its symbolism becomes that much more important. And this is your ruling planet closer to the Earth. And that means something within you is feeling closer to itself as well, closer to an awareness of what your heart is truly wanting and what happiness is for you. And you might attract experiences that awaken this desire, that make you gutsy in some way in getting out there in order to fulfill it. But regardless of the outcomes, it's the effort itself that matters, because that's what helps you to find that deeper truth to meeting what it is that you already know is going to fulfill you on that level of love. Well, thank you so much for watching. You can get a video like this each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month with Choose Your Membership Rate over at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com or thefutureismagical.com. Now, higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. Remember, this is December. We've got lots of giveaways happening over on my website, NadiyaShah.com, and on my social media. So make sure you follow me there. And I look forward to celebrating this last month of December with you. It'll be a great month. Enjoy.